All three. Wow. What you're seeing now is my reaction because I was just told that the winner of Huckberry's Pappy Day is going to be getting all three of these bottles. That's like winning the lottery. Whoever wins, I want to be your friend. I didn't know they were getting all three. I'm just saying. Hello everybody, Robert Jacob Lerman here. You're here in my home bar here in Austin, Texas. Today we're going to be diving into Pappy Van Winkle, particularly the 15, 20, and 23, and what makes these bottles special. My first bottle of bourbon I got when I was 21. Never knew at the time that it was going to be the start of my progression with bourbon. I got so obsessed with learning as much as I could about bourbon and American whiskey, to the point where it became this ongoing quest to acquire as many bottles, meet as many people, talk to as many distillers as I could. Fast forward to now where I've worked with Wild Turkey, Jim Beam, Whistle Pig, a lot of Texas brands. Been pretty blessed to be surrounded by some of the best people who've ever made bourbon. So, being a fly on the wall in some of these distilleries and rickhouses, it's hard to not learn about why these spirits are so important. God knows how much time I have left, but in that meantime, I'm gonna try and open as many bottles as I can with all my friends and share as many experiences while I have left. Bourbon, by and large, is a working class, blue collar spirit. It was founded on practical aspects and necessity way back in the 1700s, where people didn't want to waste grains that they had. So they distilled it. So to me, it's the quintessential American product. Bourbon is like fully ingrained into our culture here in America, and by law, it cannot be made anywhere else in the world. The Pappy Van Winkle line is, for me, the holy grail. As we go into National Bourbon Month, Huckberry is going to be giving away to one special winner all three of these bottles. Just stress that again, one lucky winner is going to win all three. These bottles are so rare. I kind of equate that to somebody who is one, lucky, but two, is going to be extremely fortunate to be able to share these bottles that normally you would never be able to access. Pappy Van Winkle is probably the most hyped bottles out there, and for good reason. I mean, it's phenomenal juice to the point where people obsess and they scour the earth trying to find bottles. 10, 20 years ago, they may have been able to find a bottle on a shelf here and there, but it is absolutely impossible to find any of these bottles on any shelf at a retail price. If you do see them on a shelf, they're going to be absurdly marked up because they don't make a lot of it. So by and large, there's not a lot to go around. So Pappy Van Winkle goes back to Derby Day 1935, when Pappy Van Winkle founded the Sitzelweller Distillery in Louisville, Kentucky. Ultimately, the brand was sold to Buffalo Trace in Frankfort, Kentucky, who restarted making Pappy Van Winkle using their wheated mash bill. And then they'll go into barrels. Barrels impart about up to 60–70% of flavor, color, texture. Inside the barrel, it's charred. Depending on how much you char that barrel, it's going to evoke a different type of flavor profile. So a lot of the bourbon that you see on the shelves are going to be between 4, 8 years old. To me, 15, 20, and 23 years is a lot of time in the barrel. And then you get to 23 years, which is almost unheard of. So we start off with the 15 year, which is going to be super complex, amplified, notes of, the classic bourbon, the vanilla, the caramel. But then you start to get into some of those more nuanced flavor notes. Most people love the 15 year expression with Pappy Van Winkle. It's just enough in terms of the upper echelon of aging, but it becomes super complex, a lot more pronounced vanilla caramel. The 15-year expression, I think, is up there with one of my top 5 bourbons of all time. It's delicious for one, but it's also, I think, appeals to most of the population, whereas the older, these are gonna be so much more complex, and they're gonna need a lot more kind of time to kind of get to know, because what's going on in the 20 and 23 years is going to be unlike anything you've tasted before. Your first exposure to a 20 and 23, it's going to be like, wow, all I'm really tasting is oak. And then you kind of start to like break it down backwards and like, well, it's a little bit of leather, maybe some chocolate notes, it's a little bit of stone fruit. But off the bat, it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of start to piece those things apart. As you taste more of it, you start to pick up on the subtleties and the nuances and complexities of each bourbon. I'm of the opinion there's no such thing is a bad bourbon, because what I may love, somebody else hates, and what they may hate, I may love. And I think that's the beauty of bourbon. We don't all have to like the same thing. It's kind of fun to kind of go through when you're tasting with people, what are you picking up on? And it's not going to be all the same. Everybody kind of has their own unique palate and how they kind of interpret the flavors of the bourbon. But, you know, I think that is secondary to that primal experience of sharing something special with some of your friends and family, or even some strangers. And it's hard to not appreciate it because, you know, again, anything that's aged that long is going to be special. They're hyped because, again, you can't find them. But are they good? Absolutely, they're good. I think the frustration comes from because we can't get them. But once you are able to try it, then you realize this is a really damn good bourbon. All I ask is whoever wins, please reach out to me. Let's coordinate a backyard party and let's have a good time opening one of them at least, if not all three, at your house. I can't stress enough how special these bottles are, so I wish you luck during the month of September, and can't wait to see you out there, maybe at a bar in my backyard with these bottles.